All right. Thank you everyone for attending our SLIMS webinar. We'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining. This webinar is hosted by Bass Business Solutions in partnership with Sage. My name is Amanda DeFlorio. I am part of the marketing team at Bass. I would like to cover a few housekeeping rules before the webinar begins. First off, we'd like all attendees to be muted during the duration. So you all are going to be muted during the duration of the webinar. If you have any questions, please type them into our chat box. We will answer the questions at the appropriate time. Also, please ensure your headphones are plugged in and the volume on your computer is turned up. If you have any technical issues, please write them in the chat box and we will do our best to assist. Now I would like to introduce our webinar host, David Beard.
Now, thanks Amanda for the handover. Bass has invited me along today to host this panel to talk about the experiences in putting CRM to work inside care homes for seniors. These are homes that offer long-term care and retirement living. And generally, with the guest Dennis and Zainab and myself, we want to talk about the business needs of long-term care when it comes to technology. So Dennis Donovan joins us. Dennis is the CEO of 167 Finance and Systems Consulting. Hi to you, Dennis.
Hello.
And Zainab Saleh from CRM Practice Leader from Bass. Hi, Bass. Hey, how you doing?
Hello, everyone. Yeah.
So as the invitation, I hope, made clear, we're interested in talking to you today in the next half an hour of the challenges of operating and managing long-term care homes. And we'll focus on those three topics we talked about in the invitation: the need for the 360-degree view of tenant-related information, the key need for the correct approaches to data protection, which protects the business of residents and the business of home itself, and how integrating finance and operational systems can improve efficiencies and reduce errors. So let's start by unpacking each of those three topics, sort of each one for about 10 minutes or so. And I want to set this common understanding, Dennis. I think if we start by this idea of this invitation to express this concept of key information for and about tenants in care home environments, can you give us a bit of a background, please, on what constitutes the famous 360-degree view in the world of aged care, and why does having it all together matter?
Well, in the world of aged care, people usually arrive in your home at one level of needs, and as they stay with you, their needs transition. And as such, you have multiple staff, multiple shifts, working with those tenants. And as their needs change, as staff change, you need to be able to know what's happened in that sense of, did the tenant have an issue today? Have we added more services that the tenant needs? Are we beginning to see certain things that we need to know? Have there been conversations with the family? Has the family requested certain things be done that all the staff needs to know?
Right.
And not everything is care related. A lot of it has to do, especially in a retirement home, with meals, activities, and other things too, besides the care that you're providing through the nursing and PSW staff. So it's important to be able to have one central point that you can go to get all this information. As this 24/7 operation, 3 shifts a day, people come in, they do their shift, they go home. They might pass off some information, but depending on how many tenants you've got and how many they're looking after, you don't always remember everything that's happened during the day, especially if it happened very early in your shift at breakfast, and we're now in the end of the afternoon. So this 360-degree of being able to see everything that relates to a tenant, to the family, to the staff that is serving that tenant is very important in retirement.
Okay, that's a good overview, and there's a lot of information there that perhaps we don't consider from a day-to-day operation. Zainab, to you, if I may, how can clients achieve that benefit from that 360-degree view beyond the sort of ideas and examples that Dennis has given us there?
David, what we realize, like senior living organization, they have a lot of challenges. And just to add to the challenges that Dennis shared with us, is they have no central database. They have a lot of manual process and like long process of communication and missing data, no data, and multiple data sources that they have is a big challenge in any senior living organization that we've been working with. So having a system or a solution that will provide you with 360 views with data of the tenant, of the residents, the waiting list that you have, or even like providing all the family contact, all the documentation, the agreements, the contract, services provided, having a dashboard, because most of these senior livings have no KPI reports at all,
Right.
or even if they have, it is a very manual process. Having all of that for them in one system is a key 360 view for everything they need in one view.
Got it. Well described. Thank you. Dennis, back to you, if I may. When you first started talking with BAS, what did they show you that completed the picture for better tenant management information in aged care? And why was it important what they showed you?
Well, when we started talking, we actually started talking about something else. And then we, through our discussions, moved towards a solution that would allow us to capture a lot of information and be able to store it in one spot. And so it was really being able to have all those communications that we have. You know, a lot of communications nowadays is through email. Email resides in Outlook. Outlook's not very good at giving you back that particular email you want to find, where all that information can be kept within the CRM platform and attached to that resident or to that family member. And so you can actually find that and share that across the organization. You know, you've got the director of retirement living, you've got the director of care, you've got PSWs, you've got recreation staff, all trying to provide the best possible care to this tenant and meet their needs. And so through the conversations with BAS about what were we doing, how were we doing it, what information were we collecting, how did we want to be able to access that information, it sort of became clear that probably a CRM package was what we were looking for. Even though most people think of CRM as a sales package, it's really a communications package, much more so, in being able to manage all those relationships that you have.
And Zainab, when you did spend the time with Dennis and the team, how did you present what you could do for them? I mean, what did you start with? How did you carry on the conversation?
What we do at BAS before implement any like it for us at BAS is not about implementing a software. We work with you to provide you with a solution. So the first step with any engagement we do is what we call requirement analysis sessions. This is the time when we meet from the CEO to the end users. We talk to them. We understand what is their objective. What do they want to do today? And what do they want to get 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What is their objective that they want? What is how the data is entered? What kind of report we want to get out of the system? So what we as organizations, it is the best investment of time that you put in that requirement analysis. Even we say, even if you don't go with BAS, you go with any other organization, please do not implement unless you do that requirement analysis. Is the critical success factor for any implementation of software, because I'm defining for you your process that you are going to use every day. We don't use it. You are the one who are going to use it. You are the one who wants to get the benefit out of it. So that requirement analysis session are very critical. That requires investment from both sides, from the BAS team and the organization themselves, to understand what do they want to get. So it is a big rethinking process that needs to be done from the organization.
I think that's a good use of phrase there, rethinking, because you don't want to just replace what you have. It's a chance to start again. Okay.
Definitely.
Salient points there. I like that. It's you have to do the thinking up front. The lifting needs to be done. Okay, Dennis, to you, in your experience, I want to take it back to the subject matter or the domain, if you like. Talk to us about the different types of care homes and what common problems do they have?
Well, most homes are that provide senior living care are either long-term care, retirement, a combination of both. And the retirement homes, long-term care is pretty standard in the services that they have to provide because it's government-based. But retirement home runs everything from basically an apartment building where they offer a few services to where they're offering full dementia care. And so, you sort of go from people who are late 60s to their 90s. And through that transition, you have various levels of cognitive impairment really within that group. And so the homes, really need to be able to look at what services they need to carry on, what services they need to offer. And so within that structure, homes are very different as to what they offer and what services their tenants need.
And problems that are common, are there similar ideas you brought out at the very beginning of this conversation, this capturing of information?
Yeah, the capturing of information. Some homes have more developed systems than others. A lot of homes, especially not-for-profit ones, haven't necessarily invested in the systems. They've invested in the care, but not really in the underlying systems.
Right.
In a lot of cases, when we started doing the discussion with the staff, there were some aha moments during those discussions when the staff said, well, we do this, and we found out that somebody else is also doing that. But they're both doing it at the same time, when really it only needs to be done by one in one place. And so those conversations really do help to streamline the organization, because in a lot of cases you find that they're still doing things they've been doing, but they don't need to do anymore.
Yeah, which sounds very similar, and it's a nice way to segue back into Zainab to talk about how have you worked with people like Dennis in the past, Zainab, to develop a solution? Because it sounds like the conversation about time and investment in that is important, right?
We love the conversation because that is where we understand the current process. As I mentioned earlier, we talked to the CEO, we really involve the end user. It is a key success for us to involve the end user because as Dennis said, you put two staff members, which they are having the same responsibilities. Believe it or not, you will see that they do two different processes. So what we do in these sessions and how we work with the organization, we challenge them a lot because we ask the question of why. For everything you do, we ask them, why do you do it in this way? Why you are duplicating? What is the reason behind? And that is where I mentioned earlier, rethinking on their process. And that is where we work with them in the current process in order for us to be able to provide them for future enhancement. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do that. So challenging and the why question, it will make them to go internally even talk on why they are doing it in this way. What can we do on order for someone like Bass to help them to automate, to put workflow, to put alerts, notifications that eliminates all these, like, again, current process that they are doing today.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Good answer. Okay, thank you for sharing that. I think that helps us all get a common understanding of not only of the different types of care homes, but the common approach and the common challenges within both of those. All right, let me move on to the second of our third topics, which is around data protection. It's a key concern for many businesses around the globe, right? Not just care homes. But Dennis, talk to me about the specific impacts in aged care, data protection, both for the businesses and of course the residents.
Well, in senior care carries a lot of data about a resident or a tenant. Not only their care data, but also substantial financial information that we may have too about them. And also within that sector of information, not all employees need to see all of that information. The person in accounting doesn't really need to see the care. information. And the person who's providing care shouldn't really be seeing the financial information, because they should be providing care based on needs, not on whether the person has money or not. And so it's really important to keep that information and to keep control of it and keep it safe in a sense, and also to make sure that employees have the information they actually need to do the job and to do what care they need to provide. And so, you know, in a lot of organizations today, information is key. Keeping it safe is difficult. Everybody wants to take your data and then ask you for money to give it back. And so you really need to keep it secure, and you also need to ensure that the staff have the information that they need. And you also want to be sure that staff aren't changing information they shouldn't be changing, right? So that the information that is being edited and corrected by the right person. And so, you know, things like services and like rents and things like that, you don't want everybody having access to change. You want to actually control who can change that. And then the last piece is you want some sort of an audit trail of what's been changed, who's changed it, when was it changed last, because sometimes that's important as to who got the information last, who got the information when it got put in, and when people got notified of that change.
It's a good summary, because it's you know, significant life outcomes and financial outcomes you're dealing with here, and you need to look after it for both parties. Zainab, to you and Bas particularly, how do you present the story around data protection so that companies can minimize their risks?
Yeah, we've been implementing these solutions for different industries, different like organizations, and what we do during the requirement analysis, it's a key element that we discuss with different groups, different users, to understand the structure, to understand the responsibilities and tasks that is responsible or for different groups and departments, and as Dennis said, who will have access to what. We discuss that one, and then based on that one, we implement that one in the CRM, which is kind of, or in our solution, because it's part of the solution. It is kind of configuring the system based on the requirement level. And we go and review the security level from a field level to a database level. We can control in field who can view or see or edit or insert this field. We can go even to a number of records and tabs and all of that, like
so the controls
steps. Okay, and in addition, when we come and do the implementation, we work with your organization, any organization IT department, to control the access of the database, the URL, and the server security. That is where we discuss the both sides of the security.
Right. So Dennis, to you, we sort of touched on this briefly, and so I don't think we need to go into it too much. And also, I'm conscious I've taken 5 minutes away by disappearing. The question on data protection, who inside the aged care provider do these rules affect? It's got to be multiple levels of people, I'm thinking.
Oh, it does. It affects everybody.
Right.
You know, you start with, especially if you're a combo home where you've got long-term care and retirement. The retirement people shouldn't see the long-term care information. Long-term care information shouldn't be shared with the retirement. They're two separate things. They have their own staff. And so at that level, they're all in one database. And it's important in a sense that you keep them in one database, because in a lot of cases, people will move through your home. They may come in as retirement. They will possibly move to long-term care. You want to keep your information, your contacts, but you also don't want to share that information. And because it affects all the users at different points, you have to look at different ways in order to segregate the information. So, you know, a simple way that we did with retirement and long-term care was we created 2 territories. And when everybody thinks of territories, they think of salesmen, but the territory worked well to say this group gets this territory and this group gets that territory, and it keeps the 2 files apart. But yet in accounting, where they need to see all the information, they're not attached to a territory, so they can look at that information. So.
Excellent. Yes, it's petitioning of data, which is a strong point of that tool. So I'm going to crawl, get some more time back to follow that point on, Dennis. Good data governance makes or gives an
Yes.
opportunity, I think, to do something more than just follow the rules, right? It's about actually differentiating your service.
Well, it is.
Have you got an example or two about how you might do that in your business using the tool?
Well, in most cases, long-term care homes, retirement homes have privacy officers. For one thing, it's a requirement. And so really it's the privacy officer then specifies what the policies are that you must have in order to safeguard and protect the data. They detail what employees can access, what type of access needs to be controlled, what levels are controlled, who has access to what, how long information is kept, how is it updated, who's responsible for it, so who does the data in a sense belong to. And so within those policies, you really do specify what the governance is and who's responsible. And those can then be built in. They can be taken the next step, which is where they go into the CRM, where you apply those concepts to the user and to the data itself.
Okay, let's move on to our third topic. Let's talk about this idea of the integration of finance and CRM together, which is the SLIMS proposition.
Yes.
Dennis, this idea of the 360-degree view of tenants, which we covered off earlier, what does full integration really mean? What does it look like? The billing and the operations together. What does that mean to the people who work in the business?
Well, for us, it means very simple billing. Right. It also means having screens that can be updated by appropriate staff to capture that billing information. So when we design the template within CRM, we have one screen that basically has all of the services we provide to tenants as tick box or as drop downs. And so it's really easy for the retirement staff to update the services they're offering by basically just clicking or unclicking or adding or subtracting time. They can then print off a page that they can have the tenant sign, because of course we want to make sure that we get signatures on things. And then at the end of the month, the accounting person, and only the accounting person, clicks the button that says generate the invoices. And that then takes the information that we've got in CRM. It uses the information that's within our Sage package to do our billing, because we've attached it to inventory items, and creates those invoices.
Right.
Post it all into Sage, and at that point, then you actually have all that information in one spot. If you're using a separate billing function, you never really have your information within your finance system, accessible within the finance system. In a lot of cases, it's done very differently, and so you can't really do the analysis of it. It's managed out of another system, where if it's all managed in one, the director of retirement can actually go in and see what the bill was. They can see that information. They can see the items that the person paid for. And so it can cut down really the amount of time that people are running around the office trying to answer residents and tenants questions and families questions about, why did you bill me for this? Right?
So Zainab, I'm going to ask you in a second about the process, the methodology you take when you speak to people like Dennis and care homes like that. But Dennis, just following on from that point, people often think that implementing a new system can add another layer of complexity, right? And they're already busy doing 15 other things. Can you explain what you've learned, good and bad, about doing it well? And then Zainab, I'll talk to you about the process you go through as well. Go ahead, Dennis.
Well, I think it's really important to work with the end users. You work through with Zainab on the requirements. She comes back with her ideas. You then go to the actual users, and we showed them what the screens are going to look like, where the information is going to be stored, what type of information is there, how are they going to access that information. We work with the accountant on how is she going to get her building information, how is she going to get her money, what types of reports do they need, who needs to control what in terms of the information within the system. Right? You don't want everything as an open field that everybody can change. You need to be sure that things are happening the way they should. And so a lot of it really is, working with them, doing training with them, revising as you go through the training, because the training does change things. They do see things when they start working with the data that they didn't see when you just gave them the original screen layouts. And following up with them on things they think of afterwards, right?
Yeah. So it's the agility, isn't it? It's making
Yeah.
sure that you don't go down this rock solid path. It's like it has to change. You have to step off occasionally to avoid a boulder and come back on again. Okay, Zainab, to your idea from Bass's perspective, briefly, if you would, the methodology you started by talking about requirements analysis. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
So I think Dennis gave us very good view from the organization side. I will say exactly just to add to Dennis is, yes, we go through that challenging process and rethinking. We let the organization to rethink about their process, and like we ask them the why, and because we don't want to to implement a new system for you for what you are doing today. This is not our objective. For us, when we say we review the current process, we want to understand what you need to do to get to the end line. What we work with you, and this is our expertise, we work with you in the efficiencies that we can provide you. We can work with you to see what improvement we can add. We will ask you, we pause, we make you think about the proactive, being more proactive with you to think about what can be done better on what you are doing today. Because our goal is not to give you a system that is doing for you what you need to do. When we put the system, you organizations, senior livings will get two benefits. And that is the main. Number one, which you have, in reality, I would say three. Number one, to give first satisfaction to the families, which they have their loving ones in your organization, to have that satisfaction to whenever they have a question, you don't need to tell them, oh, I have to check with the finance department to give you the information. You have all this information handy for you with the permission that we discussed earlier on what you can maybe just seeing how much they paid and so on.
So it's the quality of service.
Exactly. So this is from this is from the family. Then from the organization standpoint, you have all this efficiencies, things that you never had it before. You have these reports, dashboard, the CEOs have all that what they need, the staff have all their tasks that they need to do. When the finance department, you will not have missing billings and so on. I will add another benefit for it is the staff.
Go on, finish up because we are hitting time now. So give us that very quickly.
With the staff also, you will give them really less stress, I would say, in their daily tasks because they have all these things that is ready for them. They don't need to worry, oh, I didn't know this one before. So that is the view that I would say, and touching the first point, this is the 360 view that we are able to provide.
Okay. All right, well, look, we are coming up on time. We've barely touched the sides, even minus the 5 minutes of what we could talk about with you. And I hope the panel has given you some ideas around your own business, if you're in that business and considering maybe what you could improve upon, change, adapt, etc. I know that Bass will be in touch with you to speak further about what you thought of the webinar and what they could help you with in either now or in the future. So thanks to Dennis, thanks to Zainab for attending today, and thanks on behalf of Bass for coming along to this SLIMS presentation. That's it from us. Goodbye, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So long.